Hello everybody, can you hear me? This mic? Okay, great. So my name is Caleb Weaver. I'm here with one of my colleagues, Tom Major. We are both members of the executive committee for the Secular Coalition for California, and we really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Brian got in touch a couple months ago, and we've been back and forth, been trying to get this set up. Really appreciate you all coming out to here. Just a few minutes, we're going to try and burn through a lot of slides. Before you worry too much about the stuff that we're skipping over, as usual, the whole slide deck will be up on the website afterward. A lot of this information is going to be up on our website. We'll refer you to it. Our goal here is to try to give you an overview of who we are and what we do and why we'd love to have you involved in our organization as well. So that's sort of at the highest level what we're here for, so really appreciate it. We understand we may get interrupted. We are going to try and cover a lot. We're going to stick around afterward and answer any questions that you might have. So with that, jump right in. So Secularism 2014. There we go. All right, so really quickly, the Secular Coalition for America. We are executive committee members of the Secular Coalition for California. So we are a state chapter of the National Secular Coalition for America. You all may be aware of this organization, but just in case you're not, this is the mission statement: to increase the visibility and respect for non-theistic viewpoints in the United States, and to protect and strengthen the secular character of our government as the best guarantee of freedom for all. So I want to be clear a little bit here. We are not the same as Americans United for separation of church and state. It is a different organization. That organization actively includes theists. We do not. We are really a non-theist organization. We are really the first of its kind. So the structure of the Secular Coalition, the national organization is a coalition the same way that we are at the state level. So there is a group of organizations that got together that are the voting members. There's a lot of additional organizations that are endorsing organizations who really sort of buy into the whole kit and caboodle of what the Secular Coalition stands for. And then below that are allied organizations who believe in sort of part or most of what's happening and actively support in certain areas, but maybe not in everything. So here's a quick list. You can see here these are the key coalition members, just to give you a flavor of who they are. Some of the endorsing organizations, so a little bit broader scope. I would just emphasize at the end, there's a lot of mostly regional or local. The Secular Coalition is always looking for more organizations to get on board and to be endorsing organizations. And then finally, allied organizations. Again, you can see it's areas where there might be some overlap. For instance, Americans United, frequently advocating for similar things, but not completely aligned because of the theist versus non-theist split. So as I mentioned, we are one of the local chapters. There are now 50 local chapters. So the national organization set up local state chapters in all of the states. So we are, as I mentioned, we have a chapter in California. We are one of the more active chapters. Some of the chapters are really sort of a bit new. We've been up and running for a little bit over a year now. I think the executive committee was appointed the fall of 2012, so we had sort of a full year. We are a 501c4 organization from a tax perspective, and the advantage of this, of course, means we can lobby. That's the whole point, is that there's a lot of organizations out there that can't lobby. And so the Secular Coalition was put together so that we can advocate on behalf of non-theistic viewpoints. So that means we can go in and talk to legislators, have direct contact, both at the state and federal level. So our immediate goals, we're still very much building. We're new. Like I said, we've been around for a little over a year, but we're still new. We're encouraging both individuals and organizations to sign on and become part of it. It's very simple. We'll talk about that in a minute. Really, all you got to do is go to our website and sign up. Encouraging organizations to do the same thing. We are very actively engaged in watching the legislation that's happening in Sacramento, and Tom will talk more about that in a second. We want to encourage public conversations about atheism and secularism, which you all are doing very much here. What we're trying to do is sort of push that further out, so be a voice with the press, and with elected officials in a way that this group is designed or necessarily set up to do. And that's what we're trying to do, is take that voice for people who are interested and push that into the more public conversation. And so one of the ways that we're doing that is secular lobby days, which we'll talk about more in a second. So the secular lobby days, we had our first secular lobby day a couple months ago. It was a wonderful success. We had, I'm not sure how many people came, 30 people roughly came to Sacramento on a Friday. We met with dozens of offices of state legislators. And we're going to be planning several coming up this spring as the legislative session heats up. So with that, let me turn it over to Tom, who can talk about that in a bit more detail.
What is that?
Video recording.
Okay. So we had the lobby day last October. We're planning one per month, starting in March all the way through October. They're not going to be as large and as involved as the one in October. You can see in October we got a hotel meeting room. We had training. We had Sean Faircloth come out, present with us. And the ones going forward will be smaller people who have some legislative experience, even just a little, and we can get you on board, but we won't have any official training. Let's see if I can do this right. Oh, I went the wrong way.
Yeah.
So this happens to be the door plate of one of the legislators we visited in October, and if you can see that little bumper sticker right there, this was one of the legislators that I visited, and it turned out to be a really fun visit. We went in, we scheduled the appointment, went in, met their legislative director, handed her a folder, and she didn't really know who she was who she was meeting with. So as she's reading the folder, you just see this look of panic come over her face. But it turned into a great 15-minute conversation where we were able to dispel, a lot of common myths and let her know, we're not eating babies. We're here for equality. It was a very good meeting, and we're planning a lot more of these. Long-term goals. Oh, what just happened here?
You want to stick that in your pocket real quick?
Okay.
From knocking it off.
Okay. So this year is an election year. We're hoping to get scorecards out for the legislators who are up for election. Eventually, we're looking to support people, secular individuals who want to run for office, not necessarily at the state level, but school boards, city council, things like that. We do not have a political action committee, but we are supporting that one. And then we're looking to eventually get an annual conference specifically on secularism. We have lots of different conferences on atheism and humanism, what have you. We want to get one together to talk just about legislation. And if we ever get the money, have somebody full-time in Sacramento. Want to keep going? No? Other side?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So if you go to the secular.org website, they have a button that says issues, and they'll have sections for each of these areas that we lobby on. Under health and safety, I'll just let you guys read these. Here in California, we have we're a very progressive state, a relatively progressive state. We don't have the same issues that we're fighting for at the national level. But I will tell you that last year, we had some abortion-related bills, some charter school-related bills that we lobbied on, and we'll get to that in a bit. Education, they repeatedly every year try to fund charter schools and funnel more money to these scholarship funds, which typically fund religious schools. 80% of all private schools in the U.S. are religious. So just by having these funds, you're effectively funding the religious organizations. This is tax policy. Again, this is mostly national, but the property tax exemption that does apply to us. Parsonage exemption, if you guys are keeping track, that was just found to be unconstitutional. And I don't like to, yeah. I call it part of our policy to starve the beast.
What is the parsonage exemption?
So if you are a minister of the gospel, you are allowed to get part of your income towards a housing expense, and that could be mortgage, rent, utilities, upkeep, the gardener, and you're allowed to get that income tax-free. And so what happens is the church is able to pay you less money, and they're saving money that way. And on top of all of the other tax benefits that they have that secular organizations don't have, that's one of them. And it'll be probably another couple of years as it winds its way through the courts. I'm sure they're going to appeal, but it was found to be unconstitutional. Discrimination, civil marriage, we're making huge headway in that area. Job discrimination, it's hard to track. You know about the religious charity grants with the faith-based initiative. There's millions and millions going towards religious organizations for that. And last year there was a bill, I think it was AB 132, that would take away tax exemption for nonprofit organizations that discriminated against gays, lesbians, religious people, and religious affiliation. So it actually included atheists. But after the Boy Scouts changed their policy, they dropped the bill and it died last year. Government actions, these are the oaths and the prayer. Most of this is at the national level, but there are still instances at the state and city level. And we need to, if you hear about any instances, let us know. And this we don't get into, but our national organization does. And international. So this past year, the national organization put together this guidebook. It's about 48 pages, and it goes through all of those different issue areas. It presents our position, what we think the law should say, remove the privileging, get rid of the religious bias, and then it has great footnotes that refers to research studies and laws in different states where things are secular. And we're getting probably a couple hundred copies of this, and we'll be handing these out in person to legislators this year in Sacramento. So, the legislative chair, I get an email every morning that tells me what legislation has been proposed, any changes, when it's in committee, what have you. But for this year, the new session started on January 6th. All bills have to be introduced by February 21st or they won't be considered for the year. There are what are called two-year bills. There were bills that were presented the first year of the two-year legislation, and they didn't get far enough, so they can table them and then bring them up again the new year. Whichever House, either a senator or an assembly member can present a bill, but it has to pass their House by August 31st and get to the next House, or again, it dies. It has to get past both houses by September 30th to get it to the governor's desk. And then the governor has three things he can do. He can sign it into law, he can veto it, or he can ignore it. The ability to ignore it is so that there can be legislation that he doesn't approve, and he wants it to pass or thinks it should pass, but he doesn't want to sign it and essentially be backing that particular bill. So this past year, we had to wait until the very last day to find out if a bunch of the bills we were either in favor of or opposing passed. And I'll show you in a second the tool that I use. And it's been a very slow year this year. There's not a lot of legislation that's been proposed. But this is the email I get every morning. It shows me what bills are in committee, any bills that have been changed. Once a bill has been proposed, it goes back and forth different committees and then to the different house, and they can change it at any point along the line. They can also do what's called gut a bill. They can propose a bill, they can just completely rip it out, all the wording, and make it on a completely different topic. And that's done sometimes just because they have to meet that February 21st deadline. They just propose a bill and then completely rework it. But again, I get this email every day. I send it out. I have a handful of people who help me track the legislation. We send out alerts internally, and he's good at sending out press releases. This is just, if I go to the website, I can get a rundown of all the bills that we're tracking. You can see here's an example of a bill that actually passed both houses and then was vetoed by the governor. Here is a bill that was proposed last year. It got as far as the Senate and then died in committee, or at least didn't get any further. And then up top is a bill that actually passed, enrolled, signed by the governor, and then chaptered. So anyway, we just have these great tools for tracking the legislation. There's also ballot measures that we're keeping an eye on, and that's where somebody proposes legislation, but they bypass the legislators. What they have to do is they propose the legislation, and then they have to go out and get either 500,000 or 800,000 signatures, depending upon the type of bill. And this year we have 3 measures to repeal bills that passed last year. So these are specifically to undo the progress that we made last year. And then this next slide, this really got me going. But these are 2 ballot measures that are on the books right now. They're collecting signatures. One is a personhood bill, and then I call this the religious bullying bill. I'll just let you guys read that. So anyway, these people are busy trying to pass laws that are incredibly sectarian, and we need your help to stop it. We need your help to stop it. Last year, here are a bunch of bills that we supported, and you see the green ones passed, red ones were vetoed or didn't pass, and then the white ones just died. They didn't get through both houses. That one, the governor, so this is a very controversial bill, this SB 131. That was going to open up a window where victims of childhood sexual abuse could sue, they could take the perpetrators to court, which is pretty much the Catholic Church. I'm ex-Catholic, so I can bash them. But it passed both houses. And that 30-day window for the governor to sign, not sign, or ignore, he waited until the very last day to veto it. It's the most controversial bill that came through, and he had a 3-page veto explanation. Most vetoes is just 1 or 2 sentences. He went to town, and I'm sure he had some religious group write that veto summary. Anyway, that's what we supported. There are a number of bills that we were against. A lot of them, well, the top one, there's a bill that was gutted. It actually it's still on the books, but it talks about mandatory reporters. If you suspect childhood abuse or child abuse, if you're a teacher, a doctor, a policeman, you are required by law to report unless you're a priest. If you find out about abuse through penitential rites, you're exempted. And that bill, it was in there, and you'll see in a bit we're trying to track stuff like that. But then they're also looking to fund their charter schools and religious schools. Here is the scholarship fund that I was talking about. It actually passed both houses, but then got vetoed. And they're proposing a similar scholarship fund again this year. I think that they are, well, it's been proposed, I read it, and it was just as bad as last year, but then it was amended, and I think it'll be okay. It won't end up funding religious schools. And then we also track bills. That's stuff in that. Hello?
Let's just get that. I don't know why it's just shorting out for some reason.
Yeah.
Still on?
So, yeah. So we
Different pocket.
track bills because they have the potential of going one way or the other, depending upon how it gets amended throughout the process. So what can you do to help us with this? So obviously stay informed. These little news articles are great, or the summaries that you do. Make sure you vote. Please go to the SCA national website, secular.org, and register your email address. We do a lot of our mailings through them, including our action alerts. So when we find a bill that we want to oppose or support, we will send email out to anybody who's subscribed, ask you to sign a petition, call your legislator. Hello, okay. Donate. We have Facebook and Twitter feeds. You'll see Policy Advocate in a minute. We're looking for people, if you have the interest, to become an expert in various issue areas. So you saw all those many topics that we're monitoring. If you're interested, keep an eye on legislation related in that area. You can volunteer with one of our subcommittees or attend a lobby day. And if you wanted to get involved with the committee, there's the co-chairs. There's really, that's what Caleb and another co-chair does. I do the legislation tracking. I have a couple other people would love additional help. Social media, outreach, government relations, and the marketing. Again, if you have any interest in actually hands-on making a difference with legislation, these are ways for you to get involved. And like I mentioned, if you're interested, help dig in specifically on certain topics. Here's the national website. They've got the issues area. You can go there and spend an hour or two reading up on the various topics. And there's that little subscribe button where you can give your email address. And I believe you have to sign up, and it'll ask you for your state and zip and some other stuff. Yeah. And then separate from the legislation tracking, because we're a progressive state and it's kind of whack-a-mole, we have to wait and see if anything pops up. I'm actually going through existing law to find anything that's sectarian. So for example, it's just an online database. I type in a keyword, I say search all the code, and I'm documenting all of the instances where there's current laws that we would like to change. And I have a handful of high school kids helping out with this. We met them at the Free Thought Day in Sacramento. They did a secularism as a school project, and they had to put in like 20 hours of community project or community support. So we're keeping them busy. And here's my Catholic passion. Here's an instance where a clergy member is exempted if he learns about child abuse through penitential right. This is on the books, and at some point in the next few years, we're looking to actually get this removed. Another thing, this is next year. I'm going to charitynavigator.org, and you can look up 501c3s, their financial reporting. Religious groups do not have to do annual reporting. There's a full IRS Form 990 that American Atheists and FFRF have both sued the IRS to require all nonprofits to fill out this form. Some of them do, some of them don't. This happens to be the Catholic League. For those of you who know Bill Donahue, again, bashing the Catholics, they do have a partial financial report. Here they're making that 31 million sitting in the bank. And so I'm looking to eventually show instances of abuse where, you know, are they really charities, or if you look at his salary, he's making $400,000 a year. Are they really a charity that should have that 501c3 status? So how are we doing on time?
We're a little over, I think.
Okay, I'm going to make this really fast. I'm also involved with another group, just getting off the ground. Those of you know Sean Faircloth. He was actually one of the founders of Secular Coalition for America. He was working for the Richard Dawkins Foundation, and now he's starting this new organization that is also going to be promoting secularism. And one of the things that most has me excited is he's looking to use the same online tools that Obama and Romney used for grassroots organization. So we have this online database. We're trying to get everybody's information onto the database and just kind of overlay it on top of existing secular groups. So whoever's in charge of this group, you would be in there as a leader, get all of your member information in there, and you'd still be able to communicate with your members. But then the people at the state and the national level would be able to communicate with everything as well. And I think this is a huge opportunity for us to not only organize at the national level, but even down at the grassroots level. And I'll go through this very quickly. One of the things he's looking to do is leverage the media in Iowa. It starts in April 2015 through January of 2016. He's hoping to send lots of people in April to go and promote secularism to the press, because Iowa's a big state, very small population, relatively speaking. And the press are looking for a story. So he wants, 5-10 people going to all of these different political events, standing there wearing a Secularity USA t-shirt, and just promote it. And if you go to, I'll give this, our org charts. One of the things, we're training people on the messaging. Sean wrote a book back in 2012, and this organization's pretty much his book come to life. He talks about how people are harmed, and then he lays out a 10-point vision, which is specifically 10 areas where people are harmed because of sectarian law. It's a little different from what we do with Secular Coalition. We cover the whole breadth of secular issues, but he's focused just where people are harmed. He doesn't do the motto or the prayer issues, because it's hard to justify in terms of harm to people. So there's a website called globalsecular.org. You can download the action plan for what he's looking to do. And then separately, that secularUSA.nation builder is that online grassroots organizing tool. So you can go there and sign up as well. And I'm just going to blow through this quickly. Okay, so the person who put this, I did the outline of the slideshow and sent it to one of our executive committee members, who happens to be Dave Diskin, who's in charge of Free Thought Day. And he threw this in for us as a little advertisement. And he's going to be here talking about Camp Quest. Dave is out of Sacramento. He is very involved. They have tons of activities and making a big difference out there. And there's our Sean Faircloth. Okay, so we've given you all of the websites. You can pick up our cards.
Yeah, that business cards.
Yeah. They're around here someplace. And I think that's it. Yeah. So thank you very much. I'll let you know. Wrap up.
donate to this organization, do I donate at the California level or the national level? Where do you get your funds?
So the question was about donations, and if you're trying to support us here in California, whether you donate nationally or locally, donate nationally. So we are raising money. We have fundraising targets that we as a state organization are supposed to hit, but for a variety of well thought out legal reasons, it's much safer to keep it all in the national bank accounts, and then they help us do the things that we want to do. I mean, they really are trying to execute a national strategy, and the executive director, Edwina Rogers, you may have heard about her. She was actually a Republican staffer who has really helped our ability to get into a lot of offices in Washington, D.C., and get credibility as a not just Democratic front organization, and really make the point that we represent a really broad swath of Americans. So anyway, the whole idea of having it be a national organization, and then they try and prioritize. They have been supportive of us. But as Tom mentioned, we're lucky to live in a progressive state. I mean, a lot of the issues that we were following last year were not nearly as bad as some of the stuff that other states were trying to fight. And so I think they do try and put out fires. You see something in Montana, like we need to devote some resources to that. That the decision will be made at the national organization. But so it would be to donate nationally and not locally. So.
How do you get on the email list to find out about votes that are in the assembly and all that?
You bet. So if you sign up at secular.org and you put in your zip code, you go into a database that is California. So you have the option of what emails you want to receive from the national organization. But if you put your zip code in, they make you do it, then you'll get our legislative alerts. If you want more active, regular updates, Tom has a mailing list that he distributes pretty regularly. Daily.
But the thing is, I move all the time. So California might not be where I'm living the next year.
Sure.
I'm more interested in how can I do it myself.
Sure. Well, there's a few tools out there. Tom, you may want to speak to this better.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, you may want to talk off. There's a few tools out there to watch state level stuff. Nationally, the secular emails that go out weekly actually have a really good recap of the things that they're watching in DC, both from the administration perspective and from the Hill.
I was going to say, National puts out, it's mostly daily, Monday through Friday. They call it the Morning Read, and it's a great summary of national news. I read that religiously.
They do a morning read, they do a weekly recap.
When you sign up, do your email address.
Other questions?
It's not really a question, it's a comment. All those places where religion has worked its way into our government shows just how much battle we're fighting, how much there is that can be done.
Yeah, so I assume you all heard that. I mean, I think we would argue that, this is one of the things that we mention to a lot of the legislators is that, especially here in California, there's a very significant percentage of the population that does not affiliate with any organized religion, and a smaller but still not insignificant percentage that considers themselves non-theistic. And there are 0 state legislators that don't affiliate with a religion. Now, there's political reasons for that, but that's exactly what we're trying to change, is that so that the legislators themselves, that the press are aware that there is a large voting bloc out there of people that consider themselves non-theistic. Now, we don't vote as a bloc generally for a variety, as a distinct bloc for a variety of reasons. That doesn't mean we don't exist, and that doesn't mean that our voice shouldn't be heard as a distinct non-theistic viewpoint.
I was going to say, on my slide set, I highlighted the talk that I did with one of the Republicans who was very theistic. But we have other legislator visits where it's a love fest. We're in complete agreement on all of the issues. So, we're working both angles.
But and that they didn't feel like they could come, that they could openly support it. They were really happy. They're like, we had no idea you guys were out there. We had no idea that there was somebody that we could call on to come testify or speak to the press to help us achieve what we're trying to do. And that's the goal of our coalition, what we're trying to be out there publicly doing. Well, thank you very much. Again, Tom and I will stick around for a few minutes for